Welcome back to, well, soon to be.
Soon to be,
I'm going to make it happen.
That's the plan.
How exciting.
All right, here with us now, CEO of the GenYouth Foundation, Alexis Glick, and board member of the GenYouth Foundation, former U.S. Surgeon General Dr. David Satcher. Yeah, you got a good members of the board. You want to name some others? GenYouth Foundation has a new report out that finds that healthy students are better students. And Alexis, it makes perfect sense, and yet we don't have healthy students.
You know, it's interesting. As a mother of 4 kids who got into this a couple of years ago, I didn't really understand the science behind what we call the learning connection. And I think that's, you know, it's something I learned very closely from Dr. David Satcher, who wrote a report about the learning connection about 7-8 years ago. 2005. And what it is there's an impact on a child's ability to learn. And the number one impact is if they're nourished and they're physically active. Right. So it has an impact on their academic performance, their behavior, their attendance, bullying, all these issues that we hear about each day. And you wonder sometimes in this country why it is that we're 25th or 15th in science or math. All of these things add up, and you have to have a healthy child in order to be a good academic performer.
We're looking at a full screen. That's very interesting. If you look at the picture on the left, that is what TJ's brain scan looks like 24 hours a day.
No, it's actually a pre-adolescent child.
It looks, same
thing.
Same thing.
Okay.
Sitting, and then to the right, obviously, after 20 minutes of walking, you see the brain much more stimulated. Again, something that TJ hasn't seen since he was running away from the authorities. Nope. Doctor, talk about what we just saw there and the impact that has on children's.
Well, you know, that's the hippocampal area of the brain, which actually is responsible for storing memory. And it's really good news to be able to say that when you're physically active, you actually stimulate the hippocampal area of the brain. So children who are physically active learn better. They have better memory. They perform better on standardized exams, especially if you add to that good nutrition, eating breakfast and consuming the right things.
So we disagree on many things when it comes to this. Mika wants the state to be much more involved, regulating sodas, sizes, and things. But it seems to me that the state is already involved in educating children and feeding children with the school lunch program. Can't we mandate healthy food? Or mandate it. And then secondly, don't we have to start mandating more PE? Because I know when we grew up in school, we were running around all the time at
every
recess.
day. It wasn't a choice. It wasn't an option.
Well, you know, until very recently, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, in providing free lunch and free breakfast, was actually providing foods that were not healthy for children.
Right.
And just recently, of course, we do have legislation. Healthy and Hunger-Free Kids is the name of the legislation, 2010. And that says you not only are able to consume a meal, but it has to have healthy content.
So what's the quality of that legislation? I mean, what's the food that's ending up on kids' plates? Because, you know, at one point they were calling ketchup a vegetable.
No, increasingly we're talking
Ketchup's
about...
not a vegetable?
Low-fat milk, fruits and vegetables, and you can blend them, of course, together in things like smoothies, whole grain foods. Those are the foods that we're really pushing now. And I think those foods will make a difference not only in the obesity epidemic, but also in the learning.
And to your point, Joe, I think what's happening is a spotlight is being shown on the school environment. And the reason is kids are in the school building 180 days a year.
Right.
It is where they consume 50% of their calories per day. So you have a captive audience in the school building.
Right.
But what we have to do is we have to direct more resources into the school building. The first thing that's getting cut is access to healthy nutrition. The first thing that's getting cut is access to physical activity, which is why we made an announcement with the First Lady just a couple weeks ago, Let's Move Active Schools, to get more kids out there and moving. It's critical, though. I come from the business world, and the first thing when I stepped into this epidemic that I said to Dr. Satcher and to some of our partners is, no one of us can do this alone. There's no one-size-fits-all strategy. We have to do this in a collaborative effort together. And so what we've focused largely on is bringing the private sector into the conversation. Yeah. How do we form a public-private partnership where corporate America is brought into the solution with the public sector and takes a business mentality to help solve the problem in the school building? And I think that's starting to work.
Something I've always wondered, my kids in public school in Brooklyn have gym once a week. And what you're talking about
once
sounds
a week.
That's
I
just
know.
ridiculous.
Once a week.
Oh, it's. Let me tell you.
Oh my God.
Wait till you see some of the statistics.
But I guess what's sort of interesting, like this sounds so totally uncontroversial that kids should eat healthy and go to the gym. Like, who's against this? Like, what is this because there's so much testing that's pushing out the other stuff? Like, what's pushing out?
Well, I'm not sure anybody says they're against it, but we have cut the budgets. Many schools do not have physical education teachers. We say that we cannot afford physical education. At the CDC, when I was director in 1996, we did a report on physical activity. And what it showed was that we had cut out physical activity for high school students from 42% beginning in 1990, and even by 1995 it was down to 29%. And that's continued to go down. So we're recommending that we return to physical education K through 12 and add to that good nutrition. The reason the schools cut out physical education and arts was to help the kids prepare for standardized exams, do better. Now we know that was the wrong thing.
Well, I mean, it's asinine.
Right.
Again, let's go show the TJ charts. TJ on the left and an active human on the right. You look at that and you realize, and we all know this intuitively, that if I exercise, my mind is much more alive and ready, like you said, to memorize things, to process things, and to study aggressively. I mean, it's so short-sighted. You talk about false economy. You know what? We're going to get rid of the PE teachers so we can get another whatever.
And the thing is, if the Elementary Secondary Education Act, which is really the building blocks behind the fact that we want to perform better in school, and I get that. We want to do better on standardized tests. We're not saying it's one or the other. But in some schools in this country, you're having lunch at 10:30, and in other schools in this country, you're having lunch at 2:30. Our flagship program, it's called Fuel Up to Play 60, and this, when I first came into this role, you guys know me from my business and political career, I thought, oh my goodness, America's dairy farmers and the National Football League, what an odd pairing, but what an incredible pairing, who have built this program in schools called Fuel Up to Play 60. We are now in 73,000 schools. There's 100,000 in the elementary and secondary schools.
What's the impact?
And what we're doing is we're giving grants anywhere from $1,000 to $4,000. And these grants give schools an opportunity to taste, to his point, yogurt parfaits, whether it's smoothies, to get a salad bar, to get the physical activity equipment, to create what they call brain breaks right now. Because what you can see in those health scans and those brain scans is maybe what we need to do is just to get up for 5 minutes in the middle of the class day and move. Those 5-minute brain breaks can really have an impact.
Yeah, we have to be innovative now about how we do the physical activity, because we don't have the resources, we're told, for physical education teachers, but teachers are being innovative. We're getting kids up doing a math class and taking 10 minutes of physical activity while still studying.
Could do that.
And I think the biggest message, if I had one message for folks to walk away with, is we all have to play a role. It's the community leaders, it's parents. As a mother, I care deeply about this issue. If I can tell my 4 kids at home, listen, if you get up and are active for 60 minutes a day, you could be performing at a grade level higher in reading, you could be excelling in math. These are things that our kids need to know, our communities need to know, and we need to get corporate America engaged in the conversation, because this is a healthcare issue, this is a productivity issue, it's a military issue.
Absolutely.
This is a major concern.
We also have to add that hunger is still a problem also, though, for many children. And children who are hungry don't eat well, they also don't learn well.
It's
so
all
still
interrelated.
We'd
love to have you both back. Alexis Glick and Dr. David Satcher, thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you guys for having us in.
We have more information on the report from the GenYouth Foundation. Log on to GenYouthFoundation.org, GenYouthFoundation.org. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Coming up next.